Visit EnglishForEconomists.com and learn about our English classes for anybody who needs to speak about the economy. Hello, this is English for Economists, the weekly English podcast that teaches you the vocabulary you need to talk, read, and write about the economy in English. This is podcast number 21. Economists from all over the world listen to this podcast. So whatever country you are from, welcome. My name is Alan Robert, and I am so very glad that you could join me today. My goal is to let you hear lots of new vocabulary that is being used every day in discussions about the economy. Now, we'll concentrate on a new topic every single podcast. And first you'll hear the word definitions, then you'll hear them used in context. Today, our topic is the commercial fishing industry. Commercial fishing is the activity of catching fish and other seafood for commercial profit, mostly from wild fisheries. Even if your country doesn't have a commercial fishing industry, there's still a very good chance that it imports seafood. People eat fish the world over. Currently, the commercial fishing industry is under tremendous pressure from two things: overfishing and the challenge posed by climate change. Now, I'll share the vocabulary with you in a moment, but first I would like to ask a favor of you. This is a new podcast, and I would love if it could reach other economists just like you who might find the lessons useful. So please share the English for Economists podcasts with some of your colleagues or your friends, or maybe with your students if you are a teacher of economics. I would appreciate that very, very much. Okay, enough said. Here's the vocabulary. Listen closely. Fishery. Fishery is the enterprise of raising or harvesting fish. Fishery. Wild fishery. Wild fishery is a natural body of water with a fish or other aquatic animal population that can be harvested for its commercial value. Wild fishery. Freshwater fishery. Freshwater fishery is fishery in ponds, reservoirs, lakes, rivers, and other inland waterways. The opposite of freshwater is salty water, by the way. So freshwater from rivers and saltwater from the oceans. Which leads us to our next word, ocean fisheries. Ocean fisheries is, of course, fisheries in the oceans, in salt water. Ocean fisheries. Aquaculture. Aquaculture basically is farming in water. Aquaculture is the breeding, raising, and harvesting of fish, shellfish, and aquatic plants. A type of aquaculture is fish farming, for example. That's probably one of the most common. Aquaculture. Fishing season. The fishing season is the legally established time period when fishing is allowed. Fishing season. Fishing quota. The fishing quota is the assigned share of a fish catch by weight to an individual or an enterprise. Authorities try to prevent overfishing by setting fishing quotas. Bycatch. Bycatch is a fish or other marine species that is caught unintentionally while fishing for a specific species. So the bycatch is the unintended victim of a fishing expedition. Bycatch. Factory ship. A factory ship is the ship that accompanies a group of fishing vessels, which, by the way, is known as a fishing fleet. The factory ship accompanies the fishing fleet and has the facilities to process the catch. Factory ship. Fish meal. Fish meal is dried fish that's ground into tiny pieces, and it's used as animal feed or even as fertilizer. Overfishing. Overfishing is the practice of catching fish faster than they can reproduce. So overfishing depletes the stock of fish. Overfishing. Moratorium on fishing. A moratorium is a ban on fishing, a prohibition. In other words, a temporary or permanent stop to the fishing. Okay, so speaking of a moratorium on fishing, a ban on fishing, there was some very interesting news earlier this year. Back in June, an international agreement to ban fishing in the Central Arctic Ocean finally came into force. This agreement was signed back in 2018, but it has now finally been implemented this year. The agreement in the Central Arctic Ocean covers an area roughly the size of the Mediterranean Sea. Now, this treaty is very relevant now that the climate is changing and the ice that covers this area is melting. The melting ice opens the water and the area opens for sea traffic and potentially natural resource exploration and exploitation. So very, very sensitive. This particular agreement includes the so-called Arctic 5 countries. The Arctic 5 countries are Canada, Norway, Russia, Denmark, and the United States, as well as the major fishing nations which operate large fishing fleets: Iceland, Japan, South Korea, China, and the European Union. The moratorium is the first of its kind, and it blocks, it stops, it bans any kind of fishing activity before it can start in the first place. It really is a little difficult to imagine large fishing fleets and even factory ships in such an environmentally sensitive area, but as wild fish stocks diminish year after year, the pressure to open up new frontiers increases. For now, at least, the countries have agreed to wait until there is a greater understanding of the area and its ecosystems before considering commercial fishing. The treaty banning fishing will remain in force for 16 years, with options to extend it every 5 years. The commercial fishing industry is so important for so many countries. In fact, one recent estimate puts the annual average fish catch at over 110 million tons. There is no doubt that commercial fishing provides nourishment for billions of people. By the way, while the majority of the fish caught is for direct human consumption, in other words, we eat it, it's important to note that roughly 10% of the annual fish catch is dried and crushed into little tiny pieces into fish meal, and it's fed to farmed fish, or it's fed to chickens or to pigs. Some fish meal is even still used as fertilizer to help plants grow, but not nearly as much as in the past. Okay, friends, in conclusion, remember these words and what they mean. Ocean fishery, wild fishery, freshwater fishery, fishing fleet, factory ship, fish farming, aquaculture, fish meal, fishing quota, a moratorium on fishing. Great. Thank you so much for joining me with this podcast. I encourage you, keep studying, keep learning English. The world needs economists who speak English, and now more than ever before. So please keep up the good work. If you'd like to reach out to me, perhaps you have a recommendation for a future episode, I'm very happy to hear from you. Get me through the webpage EnglishForEconomists.com. That's all for now. Until next time, goodbye.